This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some important updates to share with you. It's official. A governor has just signed off on state stimulus checks, and another state is going to offer 90% of taxpayers a stimulus check. Social Security recipients are expected to see the biggest boost in payout in decades. I'll let you know how you can access the $15 billion in rental assistance and how to find it in your area. Mitt Romney says to get rid of woke advisors in the President Biden administration, and I'll give you some other important updates as well, such as food shortage and the stimulus reconciliation. Hope you're having a terrific Thursday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below, and I'm giving $200 to my subscribers. I'll talk more about that later on in the video, but first, Fed may need to be even more aggressive fighting inflation as U.S. household cash exceeds debt for first time in 3 decades, warns Deutsche Bank. Deutsche Bank is a big financial institution, saying a hard landing will ultimately be unavoidable by late 2023, early 2024, after an aggressive series of Fed hikes over the next 18 months. So things are not looking too good in the sense that debt, if you look at this chart right here, household debt is now more than the cash that is coming in. And I guess in 2 years from now, 1 to 2 years or 18 months from now, we're gonna see the aftermath of that. So things are not looking too good there. We're getting a lot of recession warnings from different financial institutions. And without stimulus checks or child tax credit payments, many Americans can't afford emergency expenses. One work benefit could help address that. So basically saying that programs or a lot of these stimulus check programs may have helped in the short term, but with emergency expenses, those programs aren't available anymore. So programs to let workers save through employer-provided emergency savings accounts could encourage workers to set aside more cash for unseen events. So this is if you're working and the work environment offers these type of programs, which is helpful, but which may not be for everybody. Then record inflation continues to bite into Social Security checks. So there was a 5.9%, but it's probably not enough. And Social Security tracks toward an 8.9% boost in 2023 as inflation impacts senior citizens now. So with the 5.9%, it may have helped at the time, although a lot of you said that it wasn't as helpful as it could have been. We're looking at an 8.9% COLA boost in January of next year. My question is, whatever happened to that $200 increase that President Biden promised on the campaign trail? $200 for all Social Security recipients per month. We haven't seen any talk of that, no mention. We hear a lot about the student loan forgiveness and his promise on that, but in terms of the $200 increase, we haven't heard anything about that, and there hasn't been any pressure really from anybody about that campaign promise. So $200 per month increase, haven't seen that anywhere, unfortunately. 8.9% though. Let me know down in the comments below if you're on Social Security. Is that enough? Should it be more? Let me know your thoughts on that. And on the money, Dems eye Build Back Better revival. So we've heard this many times before, like we see here, Dems prep to take second run at spending plan. Is it the second run or the 100th run? It seems like every other week, at least not now, maybe a few months ago, that they said that they're going to pass it. Everything is going to be good. Well, the Build Back Better bill failed. The Building a Better America is sort of pending. We don't know what's in it. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes, negotiations with Manchin. We just hear that it's going to come, it's going to be passed before Memorial Day, but we'll see what happens with that. I'll keep you updated. And then Mitt Romney urges Biden to ditch his woke advisors for stoking inflation with stimulus spending. So Romney assailed Biden's handling of the economy in a Wall Street Journal op-ed, saying President Biden needs to ditch his woke advisors. He suggested exploring potential benefit cuts in safety net programs to address the rising debt. So he said President Biden needs to ditch his woke advisors and surround himself with people who want to get the economy working again. He blamed the Biden administration for stoking inflation with stimulus law that issued stay-at-home checks for Americans and citing moves like oil and gas production limits and a pro-union stance. The White House declined to comment. So Mitt Romney just kind of poking at President Biden here. Will it happen? Will anything change? Not sure. I'll keep you updated on that. And then Andrew Yang says stimulus checks were not to blame. So we just heard Mitt Romney saying basically stimulus checks were to blame, calling them stay-at-home checks. Andrew Yang, who is a former presidential candidate, saying stimulus checks shouldn't be blamed for inflation. Well, what is to blame for inflation? Let me know down in the comments below. What is the reason for the inflation, for the way the economy is right now? Was it President Biden? Was it some other thing? Was it stimulus checks? Let me know your thoughts on all that down in the comments below. So yeah, Andrew Yang is a big proponent of stimulus checks as well as universal basic income. Then in terms of stimulus checks, since it's not happening on a federal level, we're starting almost every other day. It seems like there's different state stimulus checks and other types of stimulus checks. So governor signs off on $850 relief checks for most Mainers. So this happened Wednesday. Democratic Governor Janet Mills signed off a $1.2 billion supplemental budget Wednesday, which is yesterday, that sends more than half the money to residents in the form of $850 checks. So $850 for individuals, $1,700 for couples, and it has a lot of other things too, like $3 million legal fund to help lobster industry battle the federal government. If you've ever been to Maine, they have really good lobster there. Anyways, Illinois to cut a check for 90% of taxpayers. So Governor J.B. Pritzker promised tax relief in this year's budget. And the way that this is going to work out, if you filed independently in 2021 and made under $200,000, you will be getting at least a $50 check in the mail. Joint filers brought home less than $400,000 will get a $100 check, and the state will send even more if you have dependents. So $100 per dependent, and it caps it at 3. So that means the maximum amount of money an individual filer could get is $350, and the most a joint filer could get is $400 in the state of Illinois. And then we have, you could still be in line for a $2,000 stimulus check. This is going on in Pennsylvania. This hasn't really gone into legislation yet, although it gets a lot of headlines, as I've shared multiple times. I'm sure you've seen in other places. So $2,000 checks, still a potential in Pennsylvania. And a stimulus update, $15 billion for emergency rental assistance is available. Here's how to apply. So if you are renting or you know somebody who's renting, share this information with them because this is really important. So there's still $15 billion out of that $46 billion for rental assistance, and you have to go to nlihc.org. You could type in rental assistance in your area as well. You could Google your state, county, city, town, and that's how you could find rental assistance that way. So if you go to this site, you can see it's in alphabetical order. It says that there's still 512 programs available across the country in multiple states, and it lets you know what it covers, whether it's internet, whether it's utilities, whether it's rent, a few other things. So it's in alphabetical order here, but yeah, it's and then you click on one of these links, and then that's how you're able to apply for the rental assistance. So definitely take advantage of that if you haven't already. And then Russia's war in Ukraine to blame for rising global food insecurity, according to Janet Yellen, Treasury Secretary. So take a look at this video right here talking about whether or not there could be a food shortage going on in the U.S., and I'll give you some more data after this. Take a look.
Food prices in the U.S. soared to record heights in February 2022. Global food prices also followed suit, posting a 20.7% increase compared to last year.
Highest prices we've seen since probably for the last 10 years. Stock levels, lowest levels since, in some cases, 2007-8.
It's particularly severe because we are just coming out of a recovery from a 2.5 year pandemic that had severe implications on the price of goods and services as well as the price of commodities.
Coming right out of that kind of historic disturbance of the world, boom, we're hit with a really huge geopolitical event.
The war in Ukraine is putting a massive strain on the global food supply. The chief of UN World Food Program warned that a potential global food crisis might be on the horizon on a scale not seen since World War II.
Some estimates place the total caloric value of the food exports from the Ukraine and Russia at around 12% of the globe's total calories.
If the Ukrainians can't plant right now and can't get their wheat in the ground, it does mean that the 2022 planting season will not yield much if they get some in, or the size harvest that the world is anticipating.
This is going to be another major test of the food supply system. And we will have to watch very carefully what's happening in other parts of the world and consider ways to reduce risks of food shortages and conflict. This is going to be very challenging.
So how exactly does the conflict in Ukraine pose a threat to the global food supply? And can anything be done to stop it? Russia and Ukraine are agricultural giants that provide a pivotal role in the global food supply. In 2021, Russia exported $37.3 billion worth of agricultural products to the rest of the world, while Ukraine exported more than $27 billion.
They've regained their role as one of the primary breadbaskets of the world. They're not only large in wheat, but also in things like corn, where they account for some 20-25% of corn exported in the world, sunflower oil, where the two countries account for almost 75%. So a lot of nations depend on exports from those two countries.
But the Russian invasion has had a drastic impact on Ukraine's agricultural exports. The country banned exports of several grains, sugar, salt, and meat in early March. The blockade of the country's port has also halted the shipment of existing grains. As a result, Ukrainian grain exports in March were 4 times less compared to the levels in February.
To ship 9% of the world's grains when you don't have a seaport is quite difficult. Now, there's some talk about shipping on trains or on land, but it's not a substitute for the massive kinds of shipping that was existing before.
There's also the question of whether Ukraine could maintain its agricultural productivity, given its current predicament.
It's a really topsy-turvy, uncertain situation. Maybe in the far western part of Ukraine, the security system's pretty good, but are they going to have the availability of diesel fuel to get the tillage and the planting done? And we also know a lot of farmers have probably joined the Ukrainian military, so there could be labor shortages.
While Russia has yet to impose a wide export ban on agricultural goods, its involvement in Ukraine has put a massive strain on the cost of fertilizers. Prices for raw materials like ammonia, nitrogen, nitrate, phosphate, potash, and sulfate saw a 30% increase compared to the start of 2022.
Russia and Belarus are big exporters of fertilizers in the world, and fertilizer prices have been very high. Natural gas prices have been very high, and natural gas is a feedstock for nitrogen-based fertilizers.
In early March, the Russian ministry recommended the country's fertilizer producers temporarily halt any exports.
If the price of fertilizer goes up, that might be a relatively small price in terms of input costs that might get transferred to consumers. But if less fertilizer is produced and less fertilizer is applied to crops, we might have lower yields. And so that could affect total global supply of important food commodities.
The global food supply was already in a fragile state before the crisis in Ukraine, due to global warming as well as supply chain disruptions caused by the pandemic.
You got to realize that even prior to the invasion, global food stocks were tight. That is, we had run down levels over the last couple of years. Part of that due to the pandemic, but some of it due to the fact that we had weather issues. We had a drought in the North America that affected the wheat crop last year in Canada and parts of the US. We're just coming out of a drought in South America, which has adversely affected the Brazil soybean crop. And Brazil's, the largest soybean exporter in the world.
Coming right out of that kind of historic disturbance of the world, boom, we're hit with a really huge geopolitical event.
In response, food costs have climbed to its highest level in nearly 2 years, while prices for commodities like wheat and corn have reached the highest it's been in a decade. The U.S. Department of Agriculture predicts that food-at-home prices will see an increase of up to 4% by the end of 2022.
The United States is already experiencing very high inflation on food and energy prices. There is no question that the war in Ukraine will accelerate the increase in prices in both commodities, that is food, the bread you buy in your grocery store, the gasoline that you have to put in your car or truck.
What are your thoughts on that video? Let me know down in the comments below. So is there going to be a food shortage? The big question is, here's why the food shortages are unlikely to occur in the U.S. So is a food shortage going to happen in the U.S.? Most likely not. Are food prices going to go up? Most likely yes. So the war in Ukraine is putting massive strain on global food supply, and a few other factors. Food prices are rising at historical rates. Commodities like wheat and corn are at the highest levels in a decade, but despite those factors, experts don't expect food shortages to occur in the United States. Doesn't mean that food prices are going to go up though. So yeah, food prices are getting ridiculous now. It's really crazy. But anyways, that is all the news that I have for you today to hopefully cheer you up a bit. Here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Hi guys, I'm going to give you the 5 positive tips to make you start your day and make you be positive and grateful as much as you can. So first, stay happy, stay strong, and have good vibes, and do great to others when they do great to you. And also, you know this one, be nice to others when you be nice to them. Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of your support. Don't forget giving out those $200 checks. And if you want to check out any of my other videos on my other channels, you could click up here. If you appreciate this type of information and how I give it to you in a fact-based, fast-paced way, no messing around, just give you the facts. Subscribe, hit the like button, do all that YouTube stuff as well. So click up here if you want to see the next video, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.